Welcome to the Deception Narrative Workshop. I once believed divorce meant splitting assets equitably. Now I understand it could mean uncovering that your entire marriage was based on theft. My name is Blake. 6 months ago, I found myself in a courtroom as my wife implicated me for concealing finances from her. She presented diagrams, timelines, and a lawyer who pointed at me as if I were guilty. The judge regarded me with suspicion, and I felt my career, reputation, and future disintegrating. Unbeknownst to Corinne was that I had spent 3 months meticulously preparing for this very confrontation. Moreover, she was oblivious to the fact that her own financial documents would soon serve as evidence in a criminal probe. This is how I swiftly transformed from accused to accuser within an hour. The illusion of perfection, or so I thought, Corinne and I crossed paths in graduate school. She was specializing in business administration, while I completed my engineering studies. At 24, we got married, believing we were crafting something substantial. I admired her ambition and focus on financial security, which resonated with my upbringing marred by monetary struggles. For a decade, we functioned harmoniously as a partnership. I held the position of project engineer at a renewable energy firm, earning a steady 6-figure income after 5 years, albeit not lavish. Corinne was employed in operations management for a medical supply distributor, with a comparable salary. We resided comfortably in a suburban neighborhood, driving dependable vehicles and adhering to prudent saving practices. However, I believed our financial management was disciplined. Our funds were divided, shared checking account for household expenses, separate accounts for personal expenditures, and a combined savings account we both added to monthly. Every half year, we'd discuss our budget together. Corinne consistently managed the finances, citing her numerical prowess as the reason. 14 months ago, during dinner, Corinne mentioned that her boss Pierce had offered her a role to manage the company's new logistics center, which brought more duties, travel, and a substantial increase in pay. Initially, I was pleased for her as she had worked diligently and deserved recognition. However, over the ensuing months, Corinne started behaving differently. She returned home late, claiming meetings with suppliers or training for the new hub. She would take calls in another room and close the door. When I asked about work, she would provide unclear responses and steer the conversation elsewhere. I'm not usually suspicious, but I pay attention. As engineers are taught to identify when systems don't operate as intended, my marriage began to show signs of malfunction around that time, followed by business trips. These 3-day conferences evolved into weeks-long commitments and weekend site visits that couldn't be postponed. Inquired if I could visit her at her latest establishment, merely to observe her work. She declared it was unattainable, citing security regulations and confidentiality commitments. Despite seeming rational, it felt inappropriate on a Friday night. Corinne arrived home and announced we needed a conversation. I thought perhaps she'd noticed the emotional gap. Maybe we'd address the issue and strive for resolution. Instead, she informed me she desired a divorce. The announcement wasn't gradual. Corinne sat opposite me at the kitchen table and declared, "I've engaged an attorney. I'll be filing next week. I believe it's best if you vacate." I was taken aback. "Why? What transpired? We've grown apart, Blake. We desire dissimilar things. That's not a cause, that's a statement. Converse with me." She rose from her seat. "There's no dialogue to be had. My lawyer will deliver the documents to you." Over that weekend, I was stunned into silence. When I contacted her parents, they refused to talk to me. The same went for her friends, as there was no response from them. It felt like I had been wiped off the face of the earth. I ended up staying in an extended hotel and attempted to make sense of the situation. 10 days later, the divorce petition landed on my doorstep, a hefty 32 pages long. Corinne was demanding half the house, portions of my retirement accounts, alimony, and a lump sum payment of $80,000. Her reasoning: I hadn't contributed fairly to the marriage and concealed assets to diminish marital property. Reading that line 3 times left me bewildered. Hidden assets. We had just reviewed our finances 6 months ago. Everything was listed in joint statements. I had a 401k, a small brokerage account, around $15,000 in savings, all of it properly documented and transparent. When I phoned the attorney mentioned on the petition, a man named Walsh, he displayed coldness and straightforwardness. "Your client alleges that you've been transferring funds into unreported accounts. To avoid penalties, it would be prudent to reveal all financial details immediately. I don't maintain any hidden accounts. She has access to every financial statement I possess. This issue should be easily resolved in a court of law." That very afternoon, I retained the services of an attorney named Barrett, who was suggested by a colleague who had navigated a complex divorce. In his mid-50s and composed, Barrett read Coren's petition carefully upon my showing it to him. He then looked at me and asked, "Do you have secret assets?" I replied, "No," with absolute certainty. Occasionally, people may overlook old accounts, inheritances, or secondary income sources. However, I have only 3 accounts: checking, savings, and retirement, all of which are either jointly owned or disclosed. I've never received an inheritance, nor do I have any side income. There is nothing to conceal. Barrett acknowledged this with a nod. We must verify your denial of Coren's claims and request full financial disclosure from both parties, meaning all bank statements, credit card records, tax returns, and financial documents for the past 5 years. This is standard in divorce cases, as both sides must reveal everything. I was able to gather my records quickly since they were digital, organized, and backed up. I sent my entire financial history in a single email. However, Coren's side took longer, significantly longer. Walsh repeatedly requested extensions, claiming the complexity of accounts and the vast amount of records. After the 3rd extension, Barrett grew suspicious. "Blake, this doesn't add up. Your wife works in operations management, not investment banking. Why would her records be complex?" I didn't know either, but Barrett did. He suggested hiring a forensic accountant. A person capable of scrutinizing provided documents for discrepancies will cost around $10,000 initially. If there's something your wife is concealing, it needs to be uncovered. I liquidated a portion of my brokerage account to cover this expense. The forensic accountant, named Cross, is younger than anticipated, in his mid-30s, but Barrett vouches for his expertise, having worked fraud cases for the IRS before going private. If there's something to uncover, Cross will find it. He began with the documents Coren finally handed over, including tax returns, W-2S, and bank statements for her personal account. Upon initial examination, everything appeared normal. Her earnings matched what she claimed, and her account balances aligned with her income, but no red flags were raised. However, Cross wasn't content, as she was providing what was asked for, not what was necessary. The documents only showed deposits and withdrawals, not the complete transactional history, and her tax returns showed W-2 income, but lacked 1099s, capital gains, and interest income beyond basic savings. You wondered what it meant. He explained that if she had additional funds, they weren't in accounts under her name or were being reported differently, or both. Barrett leaned closer. "Could you track her spending, credit card usage, debit transactions? I'm already on it. Give me 2 weeks. Those 2 weeks felt like 2 years to me. I went to work, returned to the hotel, and sat staring at my laptop. I kept reliving our marriage in my mind, looking for missed signs, the late nights, the vague excuses, the sudden emphasis on separate but equal finances. Then Cross called. We needed to meet in person. Cross spread papers across Barrett's conference table. "Blake, your wife has been careful, but she made errors," he said, pointing to a credit card statement. "This is Coren's personal card. Examine these transactions. Several entries were from unfamiliar restaurants, hotels in cities supposedly for work, and purchases that weren't present at home," I acknowledged. "So she was secretly spending money, which isn't great, but it's not undisclosed assets," Cross pointed out. "Now consider this." He handed over another document, a bank statement for an account I wasn't aware of. The account holder was P. Whitmore Holdings, LLC. "Who is P. Whitmore?" "Inquired about Pierce Whitmore, your spouse's supervisor." My heart sank. Apparently, she maintains an account with her employer, not under his company's name. Glancing at the deposit history, Cross traced his finger down the page, noting consistent deposits of $3,500 every fortnight for 7 years, totaling approximately $200,000. Remarkably, this was just one account. I discovered 3 more, all registered to shell companies with Pierce Whitmore as the primary figure, each receiving regular deposits that coincide with your spouse's payroll periods. How did you uncover this? You inquired and obtained payroll records from her employer. Your wife had authorized direct deposits into multiple accounts that weren't under her name. This was embezzlement if the employer didn't approve it, as they seemed unaware of the arrangement. Over the next 3 weeks, Barrett coordinated with the district attorney's office. Cross presented his forensic report, and Coren's employer launched an internal investigation that revealed she had falsified expense reports, created fake vendor invoices, and used shell LLCs to embezzle over $600,000 from the company. Her boss, Pierce, was implicated as well, as it was discovered they had been having an affair for 5 years, and he had helped Coren set up the companies. receiving a portion of the stolen funds. However, none of this had become public knowledge yet, as the prosecutor's office wanted to wait until the divorce hearing to use her court oath against hidden assets to strengthen their criminal case against her. Barrett warned you about the upcoming hearing, stressing that you must remain calm and not give any reason for the judge to think it was personal, or they could lose the advantage. The courtroom during the hearing was smaller than expected. Judge Hayes presided. A woman in her early 60s known for her intolerance of deceit, Corinne sat opposite Walsh, who didn't acknowledge me. She was dressed in a navy suit with minimal jewelry. Her countenance conveyed a victim about to reveal the truth. Walsh initiated the proceedings, portraying me as secretive, controlling, and financially manipulative. He alleged I refused to discuss finances openly, made dubious transfers before filing for divorce, and was evasive during discovery. Mr. Blake, in response, denied any hidden assets and claimed he had provided all requested financial documentation. Walsh contended these assertions were insufficient, citing reason to believe hidden assets existed in offshore accounts, cryptocurrency, or under false names. The court was asked to hold Mr. Blake in contempt until full disclosure was made. Cross, a forensic accountant, took the stand. He detailed his findings. Mr. Blake had 3 documented accounts with a total value of approximately $212,000. Mrs. Blake had 7 accounts, 4 of which were registered to shell companies under her employer's name and held a total value of approximately $840,000, none of which were disclosed in her financial statements. The courtroom fell silent as Corinne's face drained of color. Walsh rose but was told to sit down. Cross then exposed the Shell LLC's payroll fraud, embezzlement scheme, and falsified documents. Evidence was presented, including bank statements, transfer records, corporate filings, all time-stamped, verified, and irrefutable. Judge Hayes addressed Corinne. "Mrs. Blake, stand up." Shaking, she disclosed that she had not revealed these accounts in her financial discovery. The courtroom was tense as Judge Hayes accused her of perjury when she had herself concealed nearly $1 million. Corinne didn't respond. Instead, she cried not sympathetically but out of loss. The bailiff was instructed to contact the district attorney's office, as Corinne would need to answer questions. The aftermath: Corinne was arrested in the courthouse parking lot. The DA charged her with embezzlement, fraud, and perjury. 2 days later, Pierce was arrested. Corinne's former employer filed a civil suit to recoup stolen funds and damages. Her accounts were frozen. My divorce was finalized swiftly within 60 days. I retained the house, retirement accounts, and received a settlement from the eventual recovery of Corinne's assets. Judge Hayes mandated that Corinne pay my legal expenses, including Cross's forensic work. 6 months later, Corinne admitted guilt to avoid trial. She was imprisoned for 4 years and ordered to make full restitution. Pierce served 7 years. Their affair, scheme, and overconfidence had cost them everything. I resided in the house for an additional year before selling it, burdened by too many memories. I subsequently moved closer to work, rebuilt my savings, and devoted myself to hobbies, friendships, and mental health that had been neglected during the marriage. People often ask if I feel vindicated. Honestly, I feel relieved. Relieved that I trusted my instincts, relieved that I hired competent professionals, and relieved that the truth emerged before I lost everything to someone who regarded me as a target rather than a partner. Corinne had spent 11 years meticulously planning her exit. She believed she had accounted for every contingency, but she overlooked one crucial factor: lies crumble under examination, and the truth, no matter how long it takes to be revealed, always leaves a record. Previously, I assumed divorce was about dividing assets equitably. Now I understand that it's about uncovering the true nature of your spouse, and sometimes the person you believed you knew never truly existed.